everyone, and welcome back to another report. This is one that I cannot wait to sink my teeth into because Riot Games are continuing to put the S in Riot Games, but this time they're doing it via something that people have wanted for a long time. An MMO. An MMO that is being led by somebody they poached from the World of Warcraft team, well, many years ago. Yes, this is a very interesting situation for the overall market, and you know what? It's a market where I think some more Western competition is needed, at least in sort of the style of gameplay that World of Warcraft has, and that's a style that I think Riot actually would be pretty damn well poised to compete against. So, join me for a fun bit of analysis, and I've do it, obviously, with the other channel. I do a lot of World of Warcraft stuff, and I've got a pretty good finger on the pulse there. I've heard the whisperings, the comings and the goings of sort of what's up generally, so I think you're going to find this one to be pretty interesting. And speaking of interesting, so is this month's Patreon loot. Yes, you will get the Death Knight pin, some lovely art, and of course the sticker, and there's behind the scenes stuff that we're working on too, and as well the daily briefing where our team will give you the news in your inbox real handy. So Patreon, it is a humongous help. Thank you for all of your support. It has been incredible. With that said, let's get stuck in. This is seriously interesting, and I'll tell you fundamentally why it's interesting to me. If you look at the other big MMO that people talk about, it's Final Fantasy XIV. And there's a thing there where FF14 is a pretty damn different game to World of Warcraft, right? And there's a lot of people who are just not interested in a more Eastern style MMO, right? You know, they want their more sort of classic, traditional Western stuff. Now, League of Legends came from Defense of the Ancients, a Warcraft 3 thing. And you can totally see some like art style DNA there. Now, I think overall what this means is that Riot, I'd say, are the one company who could make a gameplay-oriented Western MMO that could actually stand toe-to-toe with Blizzard and World of Warcraft. Now, yes, Elder Scrolls Online also does exist, but ESO, I think, just doesn't have that like tight gameplay style that I think you would get from a Blizzard or a Riot. So that's why at a very fundamental level, this is actually extremely interesting to me. Now, this project's actual announcement is really weird because it's not a big press release. No! Ghostcrawler tweeted about it. Yes, Ghostcrawler tweeted that there's a big new project, PS, we're hiring, and then in the comments just replied, it's an MMO. So yes, Riot Games are making an MMO. I think that's pretty damn interesting. Now, Ghostcrawler, if you've been playing World of Warcraft for a long time, or maybe Age of Empires, you'll know who he is. If you haven't, well, Ghostcrawler was the lead systems designer for World of Warcraft. Now, lead systems designer, that's a role that eventually Ian Hazzikostas had, and then of course Ian went on to be game director. Now, at that time, I'd say Ghostcrawler was one of the most visible devs. Certainly, he was the most willing to engage with players, and that's what really got him just a lot of respect in the player base. Sure, it did mean that he threw himself into, the odd firefight every now and then, but he was a pretty well-liked guy. He left after patch 5.4 Siege of Orgrimmar of World of Warcraft. He joined Riot Games. I believe he was a lead designer in League of Legends. He then kind of just moved up, and now here he is, a big World of Warcraft veteran, seemingly leading Riot Games' big new MMORPG. Well, I suppose the RPG bit we're not sure about, but we do know it is an MMO. Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons why this is interesting to me. I already covered how, Final Fantasy, it's great, but the gameplay doesn't mesh with everybody, and there's a bunch of people who, don't like the weeb stuff, and hey, can't change that, it's just not their taste. So they're still, sort of moated into World of Warcraft. So there's I think an opportunity here for Riot to actually get in. Now, who are they going to be competing against? Blizzard, right? They're going to be competing against Blizzard. I cannot see Riot making a game that's competing with ESO in terms of, its overall vibe, or Final Fantasy in terms of being, basically an MMO version of like a JRPG. Because, Final Fantasy XIV essentially does have one of the best JRPG storylines, done, and it's an MMO, which is pretty neat. Now, if we think about these two companies competitively, I think that's where it's interesting. This is something I tweeted earlier, but I think that Riot Games are willing to outspend Blizzard on talent. We have heard all the stories. Blizzard underpay for the area that they're in, and they generally do try to rely a bit on that Blizzard passion, on Blizzard's big cultural impact that they've had. But that's something that is shattered, right? Because the job layoffs that were at a record year. And then, of course, the drama with Blizzard employees sharing their compensation, and it becoming very apparent that yes, while the very senior people can do very well, generally speaking, Blizzard underpay for the area that they're in. We then have Blizzard being, I would say, rather stagnant, right? And there has been quite a lot of brain drain. I mean, Mike Morhaime left pretty much right when his non-compete went. He founded Dreamhaven. 2 studios appeared from that. Basically, the old top talent of Hearthstone went and formed their own studio. We've got Frost Giant Studios coming in, which is basically a bunch of, big StarCraft 2 people leaving to do something else, right? There is a Blizzard brain drain. And as much as this might not be a nice thing for people who say love World of Warcraft to hear, yeah, there is brain drain from Blizzard. They do have a generally more negative perception now than ever. And if you look at Riot, well, Riot don't have a great rap. I mean, we all remember the Neum incident and, of course, the seemingly pretty damn rough frat house situation they had going on for a long time. But generally speaking, Riot do have a number of strengths. Number one, culture. Actually creating, responding to, and maintaining culture. If you have at all kept up, you know that is one of Riot's biggest strengths. I mean, just look at all the KDA stuff. They've turned League of Legends into, I guess, one of the most successful K-pop videos of its year. What's going on there? Clearly, right, Riot have their finger to the pulse. Riot are a company that are newer than Blizzard. They grew to maturity and scale very much in the modern era of the internet. Now, if you, like me, have played World of Warcraft, then you will know that for the last 5, 6, 7, whatever years, World of Warcraft has been just constantly saddled with problems. Now, it's great that Shadowlands is moving us away from that, but with Titan Forging, how they did loot, and a bunch of other things at the game, there have constantly been things that players have pointed out as humongous impending issues in the alphas and in the betas, and even just based on concepts after BlizzCons. The players have said these are going to be big problems, and lo and behold, Blizzard have always been surprised when things have blown up in their face. Blizzard are an old school company. They run old school. Internally, they are very, very old school, right? They've not kept up with the times. I think that fundamentally, Riot are more set up to be a competitive player in just about any space than Blizzard, purely because Riot, I think, is a more modern, more agile, more switched on to the community, and better at running a live game company than Blizzard is. Now, there's a bunch of other things too. Deploying massive things at scale. Riot are real industry leaders when it comes to server tech and stuff like that. We could go into a lot of details there, even some of the specific stuff they set up to get pretty incredible server performance on Valorant. They're just really good at all of that stuff. So basically, if I think about them making an MMORPG, they are a more modern company in how they do almost everything. They are a lot better at being in touch with the active audience of a live game than Blizzard are, right? Blizzard are, I would say, rather notoriously prone to being out of touch. I would also say that while Blizzard is going to be experiencing brain drain, and we already know that Activision Blizzard, the overall unit, actually has a problem with developers. I'll cover that in a second. If you look at Riot, they're almost certainly more willing to spend. I mean, based on what we know of compensation, Riot do pay significantly better than Blizzard. And just look at the bonuses they handed out. It was like a 10% profit share for everyone, I think, this year. So they're more willing to spend on staff. They're institutionally better set up to operate in the modern era. And in terms of deploying massive, sort of multiplayer experiences, not massively multiplayer, but, multiplayer experiences at a large scale, they're very experienced. Now, if we look to an MMO specifically, their MMO project is being led by Ghostcrawler, it seems. Ghostcrawler, who was one of the most influential people on World of Warcraft for a period of time, that does include, I would say, a period of great design success in Mists of Pandaria. Yeah, Pandaria did bounce off a bunch of people, but I think there's a reason why it's very, very much well regarded when you look back on it. So it's being led by top MMO talent. And by the way, Riot have really slurped up a lot of Blizzard staff. They really have. I mean, it's been quite funny, even in the, when Shadowlands comes out and people are able to show portfolios and stuff, just seeing, oh, right, yeah, that's their portfolio, but they're actually at Riot now. And just that's happened with a bunch of notable names from Blizzard. They end up at Riot, and of course other companies too, but it does show that Riot is somewhere where people are going to. So, Riot can do all of these things, and then there's one thing that WoW suffers from a lot. Jank, right? You can tell that World of Warcraft, while great technical feats have been performed to get it running the way that it does, and all of that stuff, it seems pretty clear that WoW does struggle with the age of its engine. Now, this is not a point to hammer at Blizzard. I've generally thought that doing a WoW 2 isn't the most sensible thing when you can just continually improve your engine and do all of that stuff. But there is absolutely something to be said for a company with the resources that Riot has being able to make a project like this and basically just go from the ground up with a new made-for-purpose engine. So, there's a lot of fundamental advantages here for Riot. I think this is a space where they can do well. And I think in terms of getting if it is an MMORPG, I mean, I've played Guild Wars 2 a bit, I've played ESO a bit, and man, it's just too floaty. The combat doesn't feel tight. And then you go to World of Warcraft, and I mean, when you're playing WoW and you're at low latency, as far as hotkey combat goes, they pretty much nail it. One of the only other companies I think could actually do that well is Riot Games. And then if you think about the art style, the lineage there, I think they can start to hit that too. And a lot of Blizzard people who do not know what's up with the League will not get this, but I mean, if you go to their big Runeterra page, you zoom around their 3D map, you're like, wow, they've built a lot of lore here. They really have. They have their TV show coming out. They have Riot Forge with the single player experiences that are coming out to flesh out that world as well. Riot are on an absolute warpath. Now, it is true that Legends of Runeterra, their card game, and Valorant, they've been successful, but they've maybe not been the genre sort of defeating successes that maybe Riot would have liked, but they still have done quite well. But with an MMO, I think that, I think it's fair to say that there's a few ways where World of Warcraft could be a bit more disruptive than CSGO. I at least think so. That's an intuition-based thing, and that's purely just because Blizzard have been the reigning king, and Blizzard have made non-stop mistakes for years and have never really been punished. They've never actually had, I would say, viable competition that competes with World of Warcraft sort of on the terms at which World of Warcraft plays the game of being a successful MMO product. I think Riot can go in there. There's another side of things too. Riot will not have to gouge things in terms of monetization. If you look at Legends of Runeterra, it is infinitely more fair in terms of money than Hearthstone is. If you look at Valorant, it's also pretty damn reasonable. Now, I don't particularly like how things work with unlocking, heroes and stuff in League of Legends, but generally speaking, Riot's for the core gameplay are reasonable enough and free to play. I don't think they would make a free-to-play MMO that would have free-to-play MMO problems in the way that games like ArcAge have had those issues, or Black Desert Online, as an example. Now, I did tease Blizzard having staffing issues, right? Well, first up, if you look at the rumor mill, morale is not in a great place over there. But if you look at Activision Blizzard, the overall unit, one of the reasons why they got rid of Bungie, why they were okay with ending that deal, was because they would be able to free up studios like High Moon, because they literally did not have enough dev resources as an organization. Now, we did see the big job layoffs and all of that stuff go on. That was for non-development roles, and more recently you will have seen the headlines of them wanting to get 2,000 more dev roles. 2,000. That's a lot. And this is all in a context where I think just today, as I record this, we basically heard from Blizzard that there would be an update in Overwatch 2 soon, but to not expect to actually be playing the game anytime soon, which maybe is shooting a lot of hopes that it would have been a Q3 or Q4 2021 game. And that does show you a lot of issues. I mean, I do happen to know that basically what happened there is there was internal dev resources being split between multiple projects, including the StarCraft shooter that got cancelled. And that's what basically led to a whole host of problems with Overwatch. Because, by the way, you see all those skins and stuff, that's outsourced. From what I understand, mostly outsourced. There's reasons why the core dev team have really struggled there. So it's pretty clear that Blizzard, they struggle with quantity of content. They, and a part of that often is because they do have high quality standards and all of that stuff, and they want to have that Blizzard polish. But man, I just look at this whole situation and I think Riot has a better rap, I think, internally within the dev community of places that are good to work and like compensate their staff well. I think they'll be able to compete with Blizzard on talent. They have a whole bunch of fundamental strengths as an organization. Yeah, they could be viable competition. And I think, as somebody whose, vastly primary source of income comes from a World of Warcraft YouTube channel, right? I think this is good. Because I think that World of Warcraft somehow is resource starved. I mean, I don't want to get personal or anything like that, but they're resource starved. You look at what their class team is able to do, and you look at, if you know what's actually up there in terms of the amount of people who work in those things, you're just like, man, how did you ship this game still having so many problems? What? And then you sort of realize, well, they just don't have enough people working those things. It's really weird. Like, World of Warcraft, to me, seems like this humongous mismatch of amount of money the game brings in and that ratio to the amount of effective resources deployed on that game. Now, I said effective resources for a reason, because you can't just 10x the size of the team and have 10x the output. Very much, probably the opposite would happen. If you know anything about dev, like that, you don't linearly scale up your overall production capacity for a whole bunch of types of work by just adding more and more and more people to the problem. But fundamentally, I do think the WoW team is understaffed. I mean, look at the Call of Duty situation, right? Their other big franchise. They've got so many different studios working on a yearly Call of Duty, such that each studio has got a 2 or 3 year long dev cycle. And you look at World of Warcraft and you think, man, how do they make so little content? You look at the Battle for Azeroth expansion, you see the final patch of that, and you're like, cool, horrific visions were a nice feature. But that raid had a lot of asset reuse, and also there wasn't a new zone or anything. You just reused 2 other zones, and it wasn't that good. You just do think. So, I would maybe hope that this has Bobby Kotick and the boys, the people who are actually responsible for the deployment of resources in the company, to maybe wind their neck in and think, hang on a second. Riot Games is marching into the MMO space. Maybe we should actually start to treat World of Warcraft with the love that it deserves, with the actual resources that it deserves. Because absolutely, at least speaking from a player's perspective, I look at World of Warcraft and I think, how is this the most successful MMO in the world and it does not get like more dev resources, more stuff added? How does it constantly seem like this game is behind schedule and the team aren't able to make enough stuff? Now I get it, it's an MMO, people consume content real fast. But still, I think WoW could do a lot better there. And I would really hope that this is a slap across the face to the people who are allocating the resources, that they actually think, hang on, we need to protect this IP. We need to ensure that we are set up to be competitive. I think they really need to be more willing to launch long-term projects for that game. To understand, World of Warcraft, we want it to be here for 10 years, so we can start a 3-4 year engineering project now. I mean, I don't want to backseat dev. I don't know what those things would be. The people in the team obviously will know better, but I think they should be getting more resources. And I also think, Blizzard should be more willing to increase pay and to be more competitive in the hiring process, because they obviously are falling behind. It's like pretty damn notorious how they're falling behind. Look, Activision keeps on having record years. Their stock is at an all-time high. Why? Are they seriously just trying to be as financially efficient for every single quarter as much as they can? At the expense of long term? Is that literally what's going on here? And then we're going to be in a situation where a fully Tencent owned, with Riot, private company, where they, where just Riot's ability to say, nah, actually, we're not going to focus only on the next quarter, and we're going to go really, really damn big and work on massive long-term projects. Maybe Riot's ability to do that will start to actually legit compete. Look, League of Legends is already one of the biggest games in the world. So, man, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. There's not that much more to say. This is a type of thing that is by nature purely driven on my own personal speculations and, vibes and sort of understanding whisperings that I hear in the scene. But I still think that it's an important thing to talk about. Yeah, so look, more competition. Competition is good. Blizz, it's time to up that game. Activision decision makers, stop being stingy with Blizzard, please. They might actually need more resources to compete. And there you have it. So, do you think there's any chance here, right? Do you think Riot are going to be able to do it? And I suppose if you're interested, like in World of Warcraft stuff, what do you think World of Warcraft, if it's trying to really up its game and it's starting to get worried about competition in the market, what do you think it's going to do? What do you think it could change? Well, let me know down below. Of course, if you want to support the team that makes all this content, you can hit up our Patreon, linked down below, and get some cool loot as well as some other snazzy things. And with that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.